Be a legendary leader. Fireground failures are leadership failures. Learn the skills to be a legendary leader in the firehouse and on the fireground. Go to firegroundcompany.com.
On today's episode of the Fireground Company podcast, we're starting a 3-part series where we dive into 12 tips on how to succeed as a new leader from Jocko Willink's book, Leadership Strategy and Tactics, Field Manual.
The Fireground Company podcast.
So there's a book on the table in front of us, and I know that it's been an important book to you, and it's been meaningful to you. I've heard you say before that there are a lot of resources and books specifically when it comes to leadership, and I think there's more and more every day, but this is the one that has meant the most to you, and it's the one that if somebody asks you, hey, what should I read? This is the one you tell them. So tell me about that book that you got on the table in front of you there.
All right, well, this is going to be, we're doing a Jocko to Jocko. So it's a Jocko Willink book, and we're going to be doing a Jocko to Jocko. Just like he kind of reads books and goes through them and takes leadership lessons, we're going to reverse that and do that to his book. But I have to first, I got to give, another shout out. I'm going to do I'm drinking here one of his little pre-mission Jocko Goes, the blue raspberry. So I got to, just like in his show, they do that little opening. You can hear it sometimes, or it's, wait, hold on. There you go, right there.
And we're not getting paid for that.
Oh, no, we're not. We should be. He should sponsor us. If you want to sponsor us, Jocko, just, if you give me an unlimited supply of Goes or protein or any of that, I'll take it all.
There'd be money.
So anyway, all right. So this is the book. It's the one I have in front of me is the expanded edition, which is his second edition. It's called Leadership Strategy and Tactics Field Manual by Jocko Willink. He has this cool little military thing, or FM-02. So it's the second edition. But this is one of those books that if you were to ask me, like you said, if there's just one I could give someone, I recommend this. A lot of the leadership books, they tend to, I've noticed, I read a bunch. I'm sure some of you have also. They're general concepts. They're kind of these big statements, but they don't get down into the weeds of how do I actually make this work at the one-on-one level with people. And what I noticed is when I read this, and I've read his other books too, but this one especially, it has a lot of stuff you can immediately use where you read it and, oh yeah, okay, I can see how to use that. He gives some good examples. So that's why I recommend it. And usually what I do is if someone in the firehouse is getting promoted, I'll buy a copy, I'll give it to them with the hopes that they read it and a little explanation of, hey man, this will help you out. Or we get a new lieutenant in, I'll buy one and I'll give it to them. So that's how much I think the value of it. But so there's a certain section I'm going to go to that I thought was real useful, and it starts on page 157. And it's titled Becoming a Leader. And this is the little introduction to it I'm going to read. It says, how to succeed as a new leader. Once you have been selected as a leader, it is time to lead. What is the best way to do this? Like many things, starting off on the right foot is simple, but not easy. It's one of his favorite statements. Here are some fundamental rules to keep in mind as you take command. So he goes through here and he has a list of about 12 things. So 12 things. And they're all stuff, I think, when we go through them, you probably have heard before, but like a lot of things, we hear them, we agree with them, and then we kind of forget in our everyday life, our everyday, when we're talking to people and interacting, we kind of forget them, and we don't always do a good job of applying them. So I would say when I read through these, this is the way I thought about it. It may be helpful to you. Like 1 out of 10, think about how well you are at actually not just agreeing with it, but using the advice and implementing these things. And you go up and down. I was thinking about myself. Some days I'm better at, some days I'm not as good at. So there's always somewhere I can improve. But anyway, I guess you're going to hit me up with them, Clint, and we'll just go through them and kind of give you my thoughts and have a little discussion on each one, how it applies in the firehouse or on the fireground or in our job, how, just interacting with people.
Yeah, I think this will be good. And we've said this a lot. There's some of these sort of theoretical things. Even I feel like a lot of the good leadership texts come out of the military. And of course, that's a good place to be a genesis for these sort of things. But I think we're going to frame it a little bit for the fire department specifically and talk about what that looks like and what that means in the firehouse, And another little disclaimer I think I have to add real quick before we dive in is I think people have different opinions of Jocko.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And, obviously we're big fans. And I've met people who are like, he's overrated or whatever. Okay. We're not here to discuss that. What I would ask is that if you're listening to this podcast and you have an opinion of Jocko, whether it be great or poor, try to hear the message that we're sending here, because this really is good leadership advice. When you first sent this to me and I read through it, and I've read the book several times too. But I'm looking at this and I was like, yeah, this is good stuff, So try to hear the message and separate yourself from your opinion of Jocko for just a second so that we can talk about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's good, because these are, again, universal things. Like, if I didn't tell you this was from him, I don't think you would know, because these are universal. And I think most people, unless you're some kind of nut that's a disaster, you're going to agree that this is good stuff. It's just, do we really apply it? Do we really do it when we have the opportunity, interacting with the people on our crew or up or down the chain of command is to me the question.
All right. Well, now that we get that out of the way, let's dig into these 12 tips on how to succeed as a new leader. Number 1, be humble. It is an honor to be in a leadership position. Your team is counting on you to make the right decisions.
Yeah, this is a good one to start with. So to be humble, and you got to ask yourself, are you really humble? So pay attention to what you say. I mean, obviously, if you're pounding your chest, I'm in charge, you're using rank, you're throwing that around a lot, it's not very humble. That's not the way to go about things. So this, to me, the way I look at this is, no one likes working for a jerk, right? If you haven't worked for a jerk yet, you eventually will, if you're in the job long enough. So these are the people that they don't care about you. I'm in charge. It's the way that I'm going to do things. And the thing I've noticed about those people, either other officers or when I was a firefighter working for, I can think of the guy that was the biggest jerk I ever worked for, is the problem with that is, if that's the approach you're going to take, and you're not, well, you could be aware of it, you may not be aware of it. I hope you're aware of it. If you're aware of it, they're not going to help you when you need it. Think about that. If you're treating these people and you're not humble, they're not going to look to help you. There's things they know, especially if you're an officer, a new officer in an area you haven't worked in before or is familiar with. There's a good chance they're going to know things about the buildings, about the area, about some of the people you run on EMS calls, about the fire alarms or things like that. They're not going to volunteer that. They're going to hold that back. You're not going to have that help. So think about that. Don't be a jerk to them. Be humble, because you're going to need them. And then the next thing is, you're going to mess up. So not only there's things you don't know, but you're going to mess up, man. Everyone messes up, and you want them to step in and help you when that happens. And if you're not humble, they're not going to be likely to do that. It's just not going to happen. So why are you sabotaging yourself? Why are you making it harder for yourself by not being humble. And then when you need them, they're just like, I'm not, that guy he's telling me how he's in charge, how he's promoted, he's rah, rah, whatever, man. You figure it out. So that's those are two that I remember when I worked for this guy. That was kind of the attitude of the other firefighters and myself. And I've heard stories from other people, other officers that are, not the humble kind of guy. And then the crew checks out on them. They may know where the fire alarm control room is, and they're like, well, I'm not going to tell this dude. I'm going to let him walk all around this building. You don't want to be that guy. That's not what you want to foster in your company. And then it's an important position to be promoted and be an officer, and you have the power to determine success or failure in many ways. So that should be humbling, that you, especially if you're one of the first arriving units, you can really set things on the right path or the wrong path. And that's an important responsibility, and that can be hard sometimes. So be humble about that. Be humble about that power that you're given by showing up to this emergency and having to make these decisions. So that's, to me, a lot of what that means for us at the firehouse and on the Fireground.
Yeah, I'm noticing reading through this list that the couple of bullet points that we're covering today are kind of all on a similar topic like that. So here's the next iteration of that. And it's number 2. Don't act like you know everything. You don't. The team knows that. Ask smart questions.
Yeah, I mean, this is tied a little together. So the first one and the second one is hopefully you recognize you don't know everything. All these, again, have to do with the level of self-awareness. You got to be self-aware. Be honest about what you don't know, but still strive to improve. So I don't think anyone expects you to come in and know everything. So be honest about that. If you start putting on this facade, you have all the answers, it's going to crack at a certain point, and they're going to see through that. And then that leads to some trust issues. Can they really trust you? Who are you? What kind of person, what kind of officer? So, cause you're not being honest with them. So let them know. And sometimes this is hard, and this is why you don't want it to go too far. So a simple thing, I'm just thinking for myself or whatever, I was looking at, we were going to a box, and I was on overtime in an area that I don't normally work. So I was giving directions, and I kind of got on the map, I got confused between the darn little moving icons where I was focusing on the engine and the truck, and the engine was on the road, I was on the truck coming from different directions. And I gave the guy, I said, hey, when you get to this street, you're going to make a left. Are you good with that? And just to make sure we're on the same page, the driver, and he said, yeah. And then we got up to the turn, and I was like, it's a right, And he's like, oh, okay, all right, that makes sense. And we just kind of got on the same page. That's silly. It's a silly thing, but we finished the call. We're driving, back to the firehouse, and I'm just like, man, that was kind of dumb, just getting confused between that stuff. And I just felt, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to kind of address it. Just like, hey man, I got screwed up. The icons in my head, I got screwed up. I was looking at the little engine one and not the truck one, and that just confused me for a second. So I kind of got thrown off. And he's like, oh yeah, I thought something was wrong. And, so I looked at it as just explaining that, I can make mistakes too. And this was a guy that is looking to get promoted. So, maybe it's a good example to him that, I have a lot more time than him, but I'm still admitting to my mistakes. So, and he knew as soon as I said that, the way he answered, he knew that I screwed something up. So it just cleared the air. It's a little thing. So just be aware of that. Also here, I want to say that you need to spend a little time trying to understand what you're dealing with. So you may not know everything, but whatever you don't know, you got to invest some time in trying to get better at that. So sometimes maybe they make certain decisions. Your driver puts you in a spot, or they take certain tools on a call or something. Just ask, hey, why do you guys take that? And they'll tell you why or whatever. If you can look into that a little ahead of time, maybe brush up on, some of the whatever tactics or manuals, whatever you got to do, but you got to invest, if you don't know stuff, at trying to learn it, trying to get better at things. So this isn't just a pass of, I don't know everything. That only goes so far. You have to strive to get better at the job itself and what you should know. And then again, going back to this, given enough time, they're going to know that you're faking it. So they are going to figure that out, and it's going to happen, and they're going to figure it out fairly quickly. So that's why it's important to, let them know when you make these mistakes and you don't know what's going on, and you ask them those smart questions. And that's important too. Ask them smart questions, why, the whys, or how do you guys normally run this? How do you do this? Why do you guys position here? What about if you think this is a better spot? Ask them, be humble, and ask them, hey, what about positioning here? I was thinking that would give us better access with the aerial, or we would be able to deploy hose lines and it wouldn't affect what's going on over there with the truck. What do you think about that? That's a good way of being humble, asking them. And they say, yeah, well, maybe we tried that, or they never thought about that. But that's kind of the way you should approach stuff. So I don't know, Clint, you got anything else for that?
Oh yeah. Just being on the other side of it, having officers ask me questions, if it's done right, and I guess there is a little subtlety to it, but if it's done right, it's actually very empowering to be asked a question, and it, on that kind of the underneath of it, creates buy-in in a way, because now you're involved in the decision-making process. And I think some officers are concerned that if they ask questions, it damages their credibility. And as with everything you've said today, it's actually the opposite. It actually builds credibility. It makes it so that, and if it's done right, you can't be asking stupid questions, and that's why I think it's important to point out that there are smart questions to ask.
Yeah.
But if you're asking those smart questions and you're truly humble enough to be looking for honest feedback, not just to be seen asking questions because you heard that on a podcast, but it empowers the crew to be part of the mission in a way. And it will not damage your credibility as an officer. It'll actually build it, I think. And that actually leads into, perfectly to the next one, which is number 3, listen, ask for advice, and heed it.
Yeah, this is one of those, it's pretty obvious, right? I think we read this, and this is what I was talking about at the beginning. You should listen to them. Yeah, you should. Ask for advice and heed it. But do you? Do you really listen to them? Because we've all had experiences where we deal with people and we tell them something and they're not listening. They already have their idea, and you can tell, and what you said doesn't really matter to them. That's not helpful. That's not listening. You really have to pay attention to what they say. And another thing is especially what tweaks them, as far as you'll hear things and people will volunteer things, if you're an officer, things that irritate them. So you're firefighters, and there's little things, and this is where you get that leadership capital that I talk about in building up that rapport, is you go to some places and some guys are set on, they want to have the meal at a certain time. And we can't guarantee that, right? Because we may get a call, things may get, messed up where the flow of the day is off. I think people understand that, but where you as an officer can screw that up is, that's what they want, but you're not making time for that. You're bad with your time management, and you're not getting them to the store. You're not giving them time to prep the meal and everything else. And if that's something important to the crew that you're working for, then figure out a way to make that work. That little bit, just giving them that little bit they're going to be more willing to help you. They're going to work a little harder on the calls. So it's stuff like that. And I'll give you another example. There's one guy I heard him say something about. He liked to watch football on Sundays. He liked to watch his team or whatever. So I paid attention to that, and I tried to work drills and stuff like that on Sundays around that schedule. And I'm not saying you have to do this, but if I had the ability to do that, give this guy what he wants. If he's working for me and getting stuff done, knock the drill out in the morning, or just modify the day a little. If you can do that, everyone should understand the other side of that you may have to explain to them. We have certain things we have to accomplish, and watching your football game or having the meal at this time, today it ain't going to happen. But if you can give them those little things and pay attention, listen to them, that's going to help you. It's going to build up that leadership capital. All right. So ask for input is part of that too. So you're listening to them, you're asking for the advice, and you want to hear their opinion. And we were just touching on that. Ask them what they think. Ask them pros and cons, because some people are just going to say, yeah, well, what do you, like, if you're the officer, say, hey, well, I want a position here on these calls. What do you think? Are you good with that? And it's like, yeah. And they won't volunteer anything. So the next step would be, you want to pull it out of them a little and say, well, if we position there, I wanted to do this. What do you think? Yeah, it's good. And then you say, well, is there something that could go wrong there? Do you see anything? I'm trying to think. I feel like I'm not, is there anything that maybe if we were in that spot could create an issue for us? Then you may get the real answer, and it's more valuable input. So sometimes you got to work a little to get that out of them. And because everyone's a little different, a little more confident, some people a little more quiet, and maybe their last officer was abusive. They were that jerk. So they don't like volunteering anything beyond the yes, sir, okay. So you got to work a little to get that out of them. And then this is another one I talked about on the Insider podcast, is I hate it when people say I have an open door. I feel like whenever somebody says that, they don't mean it. They're just saying it because they've heard it. I have an open door policy. It's like, okay, all right, just don't say that. Just create an environment where they can come to you with an issue, and also make sure that, again, you're asking questions. You're asking them, hey, how do you think it's working out that we've been training at this time? Or how do you think we're doing this on calls? How do you think that's working out? You got to put some effort into that, because people aren't, again, going to volunteer that always. So just pay attention to those things. Use some of those little, tricks. I don't know any tricks, but just different things to do, interacting with your crew to help you out, so you can really listen to them and then actually heed what they have to say. And the other part to that is, sometimes they'll give you your opinion, and sometimes they're really, they're that strong opinion kind of person you got in your crew, and you're going to have to do something that they don't like. So be strong enough to then do what is the right thing, or is the right move. So be strong enough to do that. Don't let some of these stronger personalities push you in a direction that is wrong or isn't going to work out. So it's a balance.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to hear this and say, well, I don't want to be just a yes man where I just say yes to everything my crew wants. That's not what we're talking about. I think the difference is that you listen to what people say and you consider it truly. And after that consideration, there may be a no, or we can't do that, or we can do that, but under this condition or something. But the point is to truly consider it, and, make them feel heard, I guess. And not every time it's going to be a yes, but you can gather little bits of information from every conversation. So even if you have to say, I'm sorry, we can't do that, or look, this is why I don't think that's a good idea, you've still gathered some intel on where their mind's at and things like that. So this number 3, listen, ask for advice, and heed it. It doesn't mean be a yes man and look for every opportunity to over please, be a pleaser.
Yeah.
That's not what it's about. It's about just listening and being receptive to the needs of your crew, and also, like you said, the valuable information that crew might be able to give you.
Yeah, it's definitely a balance. You can go too far one way or the other. So you gotta be smart enough to figure that out.
Number 4, treat people with respect. Regardless of rank, everyone is a human being and plays an important role in the team. Treat them that way. Take care of your people and they will take care of you.
Yeah, that can be an interesting one. Because sometimes what can happen is when you're dealing with someone that is a mess, they suck at the job, they don't care, you can kind of lose track of their humanity. So you got to tell them they're screwing up. You got to try and fix the problem, but you got to remember that they're still, they still have humanity and everything else. So be balanced with that. Don't trash the person so much, but don't hold back on their deficiencies, because they got to know where they have to improve. There's a way to do that. There's the old school way, which I don't think happens that much anymore, where you just kind of yell at the person. And then now what I think, if people do decide to address it, because sometimes they won't. I think that's the problem now, more so than the people that yell at someone. They won't even address the deficiencies. You still got to address them and deal with them. Just the end of the day, just remember they have a family, they have, whatever, they're a person, so don't just destroy them. And then the rookie thing too, I've seen this where people go so hard on the rookie, it's so over the top that you lose influence with them. So if you're beating what you want to do with a rookie, or whatever, someone that's struggling, is you want to understand the whole point to everything is to try and help them get better. Explain a lot of times why, hey, I'm pointing this out because I don't want you to get hurt. I want you to be able to help me. Get them to understand that, because if you're just pointing out everything that they do wrong and just hammering them on that, a lot of people, the way things are today, they're just going to kind of step back from that, and you're going to have no influence on them going forward as far as trying to, help them improve and get better. So let's just, pay attention to that. And they can tell. I mean, I think they can tell, like I was saying, if you're actually looking out for them, if they understand that that's what you're doing, you're looking out for their best interest as far as keeping them from getting injured and keeping that, or making sure they can accomplish the task and provide value as part of the crew, they're gonna recognize that. Most people, unless they're a completely lost cause, and that's usually gonna make them try and contribute a little more. So that it's just keep that in mind how you deal with them. So I don't know. We covered, I guess, the first 4. So that's the installment of the first 4. And
yeah, I do have one question for you.
Yeah,
a little off script.
Oh, go.
But I think it kind of encompasses the spirit of those first 4 questions. And I know the type of officer that needs humility. They need more humility. I also know the type of officer that needs more confidence. And of course, any new officer is going to have to build confidence. I guess my question is, can you talk a little bit about the balance of that? Because nobody wants to work for an officer that they feel isn't confident in who they are and their abilities on the job. So what is the balance? How do you balance being confident and letting your crew know that you're confident in your decisions and as a leader, but also humble enough to take advice and to admit when you're wrong?
I would say if you're not in it yet, if you're not the officer yet and you're preparing for it, you got to take it seriously, because I think what happens is with the people that lack the confidence, they hadn't taken the possibility of getting promoted seriously enough, and they hadn't put in the effort to really know the skills and know the SOPs or the SOGs, whatever you have. I think they haven't put the effort into that, and they haven't paid attention to the officer they're working for, the right, the wrong that they do, or how they handle things. And if you're thinking about getting promoted, that you control that. That's not, you just usually don't accidentally get promoted, right? So once your mind clicks and you start thinking that may be a path for you, you have to start paying attention to that stuff and working and getting that stuff locked in as much as possible. And there's payoff too. If you're a lot of being the foundation of being a good officer is being a good firefighter. If you're a good firefighter, you usually have a better chance of being a good officer. If you're good at the skills and the tactics, that's going to help you a lot. The other component that I think a lot of people struggle with is the human side of it, the soft skills, and that stuff is a little harder to work on, and some of it you're not going to quite understand until you're there. But start with that. Really become a good firefighter and know all that, the actual hands-on how to do things. If you're in it and you're having, because that's, I guess, let me step back a little, that's going to give you confidence. If you're confident in the procedures and the skills, then you're not going to second guess that as much. I mean, you're going to have everyone's going to have a little bit of that imposter syndrome, right, at the very beginning. And anything new you've done in life, I think we've all experienced that to some level. You're going to have that, but rely on the training you have, and you have SOPs that are laid out, and the job isn't that complicated most of the time. And we were talking about it this morning, where it's like most of the time, at least in our area, first engine goes to the fire with the hose line. The second engine brings another hose line to back up the first, or go above or the side where you have extension. And then the third engine looks at trying to get a line on the opposite side and either go above or to the, whatever side you got an extension on. Not very complicated. It's probably in your SOPs or where you work, it's probably not that much more complicated than that. You're overthinking it. So just do that. Do what you're supposed to do. And, over time you get more comfortable and everything else. If you're already in it, then, you got to put the work in. You got to get after it. If you realize, like, whoa, I didn't know that I don't know, then there's just no way around it. You're going to have to put in extra work outside of work, or outside of the firehouse where you're studying and you're learning, and just execute the basics. Execute the basic strategy, the basic skills, and execute that stuff and have confidence in that, because it works. Most of that stuff has been, figured out. So, and over time, you're going to get more confident in that. So that's what I would say. Don't do what you're supposed to do, work hard, and it'll take care of itself. There's no magic bullet or anything like that. There's nothing magic about it. It's hard work.
Yeah, it's almost like humility is a form of confidence in a way. It's like humility is what happens on the other side of confidence, but you have to get that confidence first in order to be humble about it, Yeah.
Know the job, and over time, over running more calls, that confidence there's always something that's going to give you a hiccup, and you're never going to be perfect, but most of the time, if you're locked in, you're going to do okay. You're going to do okay, and you're going to see that, and like, okay, I can handle this. I can work through this. I can figure this out.
All right, that sounds good. So that's our first 4, and there's 12 of them. So we're going to come back in another episode, and we'll get some other good stuff for you from Jocko.
All right, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for listening.
Check us out at firegroundcompany.com. You'll find links to all our social media accounts and our YouTube channel, and you'll stay up to date on everything we're working on. We also have a store on our website where you can support us as we grow this community, plus working on some great courses to help you strengthen your leadership in the fire department and support its traditions and culture. last but not least, subscribe to the podcast, give us a rating, leave a comment, spread the word, get this out to the firefighters who are hungry to make the job even better.
The Fireground Company Podcast.